Brendo here. And earlier I saw a video my friend Complete Rationality put up, which was a conversation he had with Theo Warner. I'll link below, and I encourage you guys to watch it. It was much more interesting than the conversation with Billsy Bob. Um, I think Complete Rationality had much better questions, but I think that there was a thesis to his line of questioning that really was the same as Billsy Bob's, and I think is very fundamentally flawed, that I'd like to address as an atheist. When we engage, when we have conversations with the religious, we often claim to be in the superior position because we have the evidence, by virtue of possessing evidence. We say that that creates, that presents the superior position. And we often do this specifically to brush away arguments that are based on definition, arguments that are based on experience, arguments that are based on philosophy. So theists will present an argument of saying, well, if God doesn't exist, then there's nothing for you to not believe in. So being an atheist is a nonsensical position. It contains no internal consistency. And we say, well, but that's not the problem. I can reject religion. I can reject whatever your thesis is, whatever it is you're asking me to believe. But I'm going to take whatever your claims are and reject them or accept them based on evidence. I'm not going to buy your meta-narrative. And that's what it means to be an atheist. That is why I am an atheist. So Billsy Bob creates exactly the same kind of meta-narrative. And I think Theo Warner is quite right to point out that it's, if not fundamentalism, it is at least exactly the same in character. It's exactly the same in logical content as what religious fundamentalists do. I'm going to establish a positive-negative dichotomy, force you to take a side, and then say that if you do not conform to the most extreme elements of this dichotomy I've constructed, then you are not clear. You are not being intellectually honest with what you have espoused. And this is where theists say, well, as an atheist, you shouldn't have any moral compass whatsoever because you've absolutely and totally rejected everything that I, as a theist, believe in. And that's nuts. That's absurd. That dichotomy is absolutely false. There's no intrinsicality to goodness having to be related to a religious position. Well, similarly, there's no intrinsicality to rationality or reason having to be part of a skeptical or atheist position. The two just simply don't go together whatsoever. And in setting this dichotomy up and saying superstition is a bad, fighting superstition is a good, that's exactly the same as saying sin is bad, virtue is good. We haven't moved beyond. We've just reestablished a meta-narrative in the opposite direction, the opposite polarity. What's really troubling to me is that we have atheists following this line of reasoning where they have absolutely surrendered evidence. Evidentialism is out of the window in favor of this prescriptive, narrative, definitional argument. I can present an argument that makes Christianity incoherent, therefore there's no such thing as being Christian. Christianity is meaningless, or you can only be a Christian if you are fine with child murder and racism and all of these other extreme homophobia, all these other extreme conditions that are symptomatic of fundamentalism. They are not definitional to Christianity. And the argument that's being made here is, well, I have the Bible, and you as a Christian have to accept what is literally in the Bible. And that is the argument that Christian fundamentalists make. So now we have atheists making the same argument. And when Christians reply, no, that's not what I believe, rather than engaging your critical faculties and listening to them tell you what they believe, instead you throw the evidence out the window and say, no, this is what you believe. Now there's something to be said for understanding a doctrine. For example, if you've read the Bible, you understand the Bible, you can speak with some authority about what it says. But Theo is absolutely right to say there is a level of interpretation that will always go on. Language is not a fixed and static thing. And we have the Bible today in the common vernacular. There is a difference in terms of how the Bible is interpreted between Christians who read it who were brought up with it, who are used to reading it in modern English, versus those who read it in the King James. And that is a political divide. That is a substantive division within American Protestantism, those who are King James only and those who are not. And the difference in the language actually leads to a difference in interpretation of the Bible. So this is not just being obtuse. And different denominations do have structured scholastic traditions to codify how it is those within their denomination interpret passages of the Bible. Now, Theo Warner had said in his conversation with Beelzebub, he's comfortable describing himself as a Roman Catholic. Beelzebub didn't know what that was. Well, okay. But how many people who heard him say that, who wanted to back up Beelzebub's position, then went out and researched Catholicism? I made this point in a comment on the video I'm referencing, a link to the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Now, this is something that is extra-biblical. And it is a guide for Catholics on how to interpret the Bible, what exactly it is a Catholic is supposed to believe, and what passages of the Bible relate to that. So it's very frustrating for anyone who is knowledgeable of the subject. I was raised Catholic. I am no longer a Catholic. I grew up listening to Protestants saying Catholics are not Christian. And they didn't go out and research and find out what it was Catholics actually believe. They had a fundamentalist disagreement, if you will. They just knew Catholics were different. And so they weren't averse to making things up about them, like saying that they worship the devil. And I see the same kind of fundamentalism here. It doesn't matter what a Catholic believes. It's religion, and I've already rejected religion. Right, but now you're rejecting evidence about what it is that person believes. I am a humanist. I take my data set to be people. What matters when I am going to engage in the question of what is it that a Christian believes? Christians in general, Christians in a specific denomination. They are the data set. They are the source and the authority for what it is they believe. I can demonstrate to them that their beliefs are inconsistent. I can hold up the Bible and say, well, you told me this belief you have is based on the Bible, but this is what the Bible says. But I can't tell them, you don't believe what you told me. Just that it's inconsistent with the source that you've provided. That is a huge difference. I am not going to surrender humanism, the idea that it is people who define themselves, people who create the data set by which we will discuss what it is people believe, and that it is the individual, their ability to express themselves, that forms the evidence that we are going to use in order to engage in this dialogue. I'm not going to abandon all of that. throw evidentialism out the window in order to go along with the meta-narrative that superstition is bad. I hope you enjoyed this rant. I think the next video that I'm going to do will be specifically targeted on how we can talk about divisions within Christianity, what brings them together, and what pulls them apart. Thank you very much.